This is Canucks Only.
This is Canucks Only.
Here are your hosts, Shylo Smith and Rob Young.
Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Shylo. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. It's Sunday, May 17th. There is a second night of no hockey in week 3 of the playoffs. I'm feeling a little out of sorts. I've gotten used to the routine of something being on, and especially with games that matter. It's crazy, and again, the hockey is so good, and again, it's Canucks less hockey, and so that's no good. But welcome to another episode of Canucks Only, and so Shylo, last week I didn't think we have anything to talk about, and I thought maybe this might be a dull week as well, but this was also a busy week. So let's jump right into it. What do you think of Daniel and Henrik Sedin and Ryan Johnson taking the helm of the good ship, Canuck? What are your thoughts? How do you feel about this?
I think it's a good move in a way. It's also pretty risky for the Sedins. I mean, I wonder if they had conversations with ownership sort of about the whole Trevor Linden thing.
Yep.
Right. So it's going to be interesting. We know that they're not, like, they'll talk to media, but they don't really talk to the media. They just sort of give all the good news liners, right? Yeah, we tried hard. We were there. We were a step behind, but we did some good stuff. They're not going to have to be up in front of the media too much. For RJ, I'm like, the dude's been with the Canucks for 20-something years. Like,
is it been 20 years? I mean, oh my goodness.
If he didn't get this, I was 100% convinced he was walking, right? Like, if he did not get this opportunity at this time, he was walking. So, I mean, you and I talked before, and I was kind of like, it would have been fun to see, like, Henrik Sedin as the president and Daniel Sedin as the GM, right? And having
interesting
that consistent messaging going through, because they'd basically both be on the same page. Yeah. So no, I think it was the right move, but it's also. There's also the bit, like, what's his name? What was his name? And apparently he was
Evan Gold.
Gold, yeah. Like, he was super close.
Yeah.
And then just dropped out.
Yeah, I've heard some things watching the Steve Dangle podcast. So carry on. We can discuss this as we go along. But hey, did you see the reference point that Daniel said that Evan Gold was an impressive prospect as well? Did you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There's I mean, it's interesting. I think I like Daniel and Henrik at the helm. I think it's a smart move by ownership, because they're going to have a longer leash with this fan base than anyone else. So to put them at the helm and say, okay, hey, they're going to make some decisions. They're going to move this forward. If things slide, or if they don't make good decisions, I think the fan base they're not going to throw them on the coals right away. And anyone else that did that, they would just roast them. They'd be like, why is this guy here? Right. He has no idea what he's doing. Yeah. Like, why do we even bring this guy in, right?
It's great.
And to be honest, RJ is not going to be protected under the Sedins. Like, if RJ does something wrong, right, he's going to get a blunt of it. And if the Sedins do something wrong that RJ is supposed to have, control over, if you will, sort of like if you look at, like, what things that was going on with the last regiment there, the Sedins will still be protected. Like, they're going to have that shine on them, and RJ is going to take the hit. So I think ownership did it because It's going to give the fan base a longer leash. It will give, there's already that respect from the media and that respect from the fan base. and I think if they do any sort of mistakes, people are going to, in the short term, dismiss it and be like, yeah, you know what? They're learning. That's good. It's not a horrible deal, but it's not the best deal. But I think they, hopefully they learned from that or whatever. Yeah. I think there's just going to be that opportunity for them to make a little bit of mistakes and not everyone beat them up about it. Because, as I said, if someone else came in and they do something wrong, they're not going to have a leash. This fan base doesn't have the patience for someone going in and messing up the rebuild. Right.
Yep.
But I think they would have a little bit more patience with the Sedins.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the leash is pretty long. It's a great PR move. It's a great, I hate to say it's a strategic move by Francesco. He bought himself more time for sure. Although I am cautiously optimistic about a couple things, is that Francesco actually said rebuild about 2 or 3 times in the announcement for the Twins and for RJ. And that's maybe the first time he's clearly said that. And then in Rutherford's presser, which I thought we might cover this week, if there was no news with a new GM by the time we recorded today, Sunday, May 17th, then I would have gone back and discussed ad nauseum Rutherford's presser, because I hadn't watched until actually today, because I wanted to maybe watch it live with you. And I think there was a few telling things in there, and telling meaning he's being pretty honest with us. And I'm not 100% sure what I think of Rutherford, but I have a better opinion of him. Or a better formed opinion of him at the moment, because he's actually been really honest with us. I can't say he's been the most effective, and the whole Alvin thing was a good, I'd say, dice roll of bringing in someone who is new, bringing him in as a first-time GM. But if you go back and you watch Rutherford, he actually says, to replace me, there might be 1 or 2 people that might replace me. So obviously the conversation
coming.
Well, I think it was a discussion. He's a pretty good poker player, and and he hasn't been disingenuous with us. And it's not unlike Alvin, who was new with the sort of public speaking persona as a GM. His stuff felt very rehearsed, and Rutherford feels way less rehearsed and a little more off the cuff and actually more honest at that point. So I still think that there was blunders. So I'm going to digress just to the Rutherford thing for a couple minutes, because he actually talked about the Quinn Hughes thing. So part of me waiting in watching his presser was usually the stuff that's the most like thorny, prickly, egregious, like WTF moments usually get filtered through social and on the talk shows and whatnot. But there wasn't a lot of it. There was a couple things, and I'll bring it up in after we get finished talking about the Twins and Ryan Johnson. But I found it quite refreshing, and not really sort of hopeful, but man, he retread a little bit back with Quinn Hughes. I mean, he addressed it right on the nail on the head that he knew Quinn Hughes was leaving. Yep. And then the Garland and Besser signings were to try and quell him and try and convince him to stay, which we talked about quite a bit, and we theorized, and that's the only thing that made sense. And he admitted to it, which I found refreshing. His Demko comments was interesting, because he says, if Demko's healthy again, it's a different team, and that's how the team started. Part of the questions coming to him were, why did you do these moves? What was the assessment? All around Quinn Hughes, and he says, we started with a good record, like 4. He said 4-2. I can't remember what they started at, but Demko was healthy, and this team looked different, anyways. But let's just circle back to the Twins and Ryan Johnson. Out of 10, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most confident, What's your confidence level in this choice, in also what they should be able to try and accomplish?
I mean, yeah, I'll say an 8 right now. Okay. They're saying the right things.
Yeah.
They're saying that it's going to take time. They're saying that, to put any timeline, even though I like to have a timeline, but, obviously they don't want to, it's a little bit, when you're doing the job, you don't want to be like, yeah, we're going to do this in 5 years. And then things go sideways here and there. And it, turns into a 6-year thing, or you land a couple of like sweet things and you're sitting there going at 4 years, like, okay, now we're there. The fan base is going to sort of hold you to whatever you say. Yeah. So, for them saying that, putting a timeline's not fair to the process, I agree with that. But I like that they're talking about taking the time to do it, right? Like Henrik said, basically, I'm paraphrasing that it's irresponsible to do this as fast as possible. We got to be careful and go slow.
Yeah.
Right. And, something along those lines, or to do this.
He said to do it as quickly as we can,
as possible. Yeah,
we have to go slow.
Go careful and slow. That's what it was, and that's right. You to get out of this, to get out of a successful build as quickly as possible. You got to make the right decisions. You have to have the proper plan, and you got to go careful and slow. So I'm glad that they're doing that, and that's why I give them that sort of that 8 mark, because currently they're saying what I would hope someone coming in to say, instead of being like, Jim Benning, who came in going, hey, we'll turn this around real quick. Right. Yeah. We're going to get this team back on track real fast.
Yeah. I'd love to rewatch that just to see, because he had to follow Linden's lead, but I think he said that after Linden was out. Is that my memory serving me?
After, I think that was out or after Linden was out. That's what he came back with.
Yeah.
And in all his actions, if you actually take a look at what he did, it was living to that mantra, right? Of, hey, we're going to do everything to spin this around as quickly as possible. We're going to make some big deals. We're going to trade aggressively, get rid of our picks and get some NHL players in here and turn this around.
Yeah.
It wasn't the right thing to do.
Totally. So the slow build. It was good to hear Henrik saying that. Yeah.
RJ, what's that?
Yeah, it was good. I was just trying to help you circle back on your thoughts, but it was great to hear Henrik say that.
Yeah. And that's why I give him the 8. So I think that's really good. And they're aware of that. And so here we go. Right. So,
and they also took some words right out of your mouth, and where you said, you hope whoever it is, you said, Francesco, if you're listening, if I was the GM, like, I need a plan. Yeah. And then stick to the plan. And that's actually what Ryan Johnson said. Because he actually said, if we look at what we set the plan in May 2026, and I thought, wait a second, he's talking about right now. And okay, I was like, it took me a moment to follow where he was going, just like how he decided what words to use. But the thing is, he's looking to make the plan now, have them all in agreement, because one of the questions to the Twins as well was, hey, what if there's a disagreement between President 1 and co-President 2? How will you resolve that? What's the tiebreaker? And they said there's no tiebreaker. We're all going to be in agreement because they're going to hammer it out discussion wise, right? So that's actually refreshing, and so it's also confidence building.
Yeah, no, I mean, I loved hearing. I think the Aquilinis listen to us. Like, they must listen to our show, because a lot of what we talk about actually sort of later on kind of comes about, right? Yeah. But I loved hearing Johnson saying, like, there's a vision and a plan in place, and that's what they need to stick to. Like, that's what I was preaching, right? I'm saying, like, you have to have a plan. You can't just come in and be like, oh, we're gonna work towards getting back to the playoffs or whatever. No, there has to be an actual plan in place, and you need to stick to the plan. Because if you start going off the plan, then that's going to mess everything else up. So the fact that he said, like, straight up, we have a plan and we're going to stick to it. I was very excited to hear that. And again, these are the words that they're coming out and saying. Yeah. I'd like to revisit this in 8 months' time and see if they're following that basic.
Yeah. So my take is, like, obviously we know a lot more about Daniel and Henrik than we do about Ryan Johnson. So here's my take. I think the Twins have overcome a lot in their careers. So as I was explaining to someone the other day, it's like they've gone from the sisters to Hall of Fame. They went from being weak and knocked off the puck to being really strong, to Henrik winning the Art Ross, to MVPs. They conquered every level of their professional playing career physically. Mm-hmm. I think that they would, and so then let's get out of the playing career, and now it's their fitness, right? So they've chosen to be super fit still and kicking all of the prospects' asses in the grouse grind test. Mm-hmm. So,
which I love.
Yeah, it's hilarious, right? So my take on that is that no matter what the challenge is, whatever they set their mind to, and the fact that there's two of them is a wonderful support system for them to accomplish the next thing. Now, we've all wondered what the next thing was going to be for them. And in my mind, this is kind of perfect. Like, they were asked about, you're going to be on the ice still. It's weird to have a president on the ice still. So they're focusing only on management. And I think that they're smart enough and they're competitive enough without the arrogance and pride of, say, I'll even throw Brian Burke into that arena of the Mike Gillises, the Brian Burks. And I'm not comparing them to those people specifically, but more the attitude. They're more humble. Mm-hmm. They're more humble, and they will approach their intelligence and intelligently tackle the tasks at hand as presidents with the same abilities and there's a word I'm looking for, but how they tackled their professional physical careers. And I think they'll do the same thing there. So I'm really fine with them there. Okay, so Ryan Johnson, we know way less about. And, as you and I talked about, okay, Abbotsford, he won the Calder Cup. There's question marks around what did he do? How much did he do? How much was he involved in? Now, watching the presser of the three of them, I feel more confident. I'm watching his eyes, I'm watching his body language, I'm listening to his responses, and I feel my confidence level went up a couple ticks. And there seems to be a strength of conviction and sort of a quiet confidence. I don't detect any sort of bluster or BS where he's trying to BS his way through it. I think he's kind of the real deal. And so watching his presser, I feel better. I don't know how he'll do, to be perfectly honest. But the fact that he won with Abby is a great nod. The fact that he's been around for so long is a great nod. The fact that he's watched for 13 years, watched this franchise double implode on itself since his playing days and since he moved into management. You get to be privy to all the conversations and then the decision and then the result. So he's like, oh, okay. So he's technically an assistant general manager. Mm-hmm. And he would have been privy to those conversations, but also get to see the end result. So I think that for a rebuild for us, I think it's perfectly lovely. I think it's perfectly fine. How will he do? Don't know. But he's got a long leash as well. I think he's got a 5-year window to try and figure some things out. But building Abbey was one. Having a relationship with the players there. But I think probably more importantly, it's building that culture down there. I think is a good thing. And so I feel,
remember he also played on that 2010 team. So he knows what the characters on a team need to look like and what's acceptable, how they should be, because he was on that team with some real big personalities, with a lot of and those guys, they held each other accountable all the time, and they're a tight-knit family, right? And he was a part of that. And I think the Sedins and him sort of, they might have that same vision because they know what it was that took him to that in 2010. I mean, he's been with the Canucks for, I joked saying like 25 years. He's actually been with them for 13 years in the front office.
Right.
So he was a player development for a couple of years in 2013-15.
Yeah.
And then he became director of player development. And then he became the general manager for Utica when they were still back in Utica. And then he was the director of player development and GM for Abbey after that.
Right.
And, so, I mean, he's been doing the general manager position since basically 2017 for Utica and for Abbey. And then in 2024, he got on as the assistant for the Canucks, and here we are. So I think his resume, when you look at what he's done, I think he's got a lot of experience, through the A's, the AHL, to bring it forward and give him that test now in the NHL. So I'm happy. I'm excited for him. I think it's, like I said, I think it was the right move. I didn't think there was too many other options. Like, I was jokingly serious when I was saying, Henrik as the president and Daniel as the GM and bring Manny up as coach, right? Like I was like, there's my dream team. But to lose Ryan Johnson with all the experience that he's had in this organization,
yeah,
without giving him a shot, I think would be a miss, really.
Yeah. Did you catch the part
I
where
think he deserves it, and he should get that opportunity to either do well or learn from it and move on.
Yeah. Did you catch the part where Rutherford said that Nashville did not ask for permission?
Oh no, I missed that. They said they did not.
Yeah. Rutherford very specifically went out of his way to say, by the way, Nashville never asked for permission, and so I didn't have to give permission. So I found that interesting. So he says, yeah, he actually called out a reporter anonymously, said whoever reported that made that up.
Yeah.
So, hey, here's a quick little trivia for you. Ryan Johnson finished his playing career with the Canucks?
No. He got traded. Did he get traded?
He was a UFA.
Chicago.
That's right. He played against the 2011 Canucks.
Yeah, he played against the 2011. He was with them 2009 and 2010 or 2008 and 2009.
So that's interesting. So he was UFA. Canucks didn't pick him up. He went to Chicago, played against him, but then in 2013 he came back to the Canucks. So that's interesting. I in my foggy memory thought, he just rolled into staying with the Canucks, but I forgot about that part. Although I do remember watching is like, Johnson, like he's playing, but that's it's the hard drive's full. You put stuff here, it falls out the other side. So
exactly.
Yeah, so that was one thing about Rutherford's presser. He said that Nashville did not ask.
The media here, like it's Canadian based market. We look for the stories, and
if you can't find the facts, go make something up.
You can't find it, and that's like one of the things that I absolutely love about 32's thoughts.
Elliot
and
Kyle Bukauskas.
Kyle.
Campbell River's own.
Is that they won't mention something that hasn't been verified by them.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's good.
And I think that's why they get so much respect. that's why people are comfortable speaking to them, because they don't just make stuff up, and they don't burn people, and they don't just, throw names out and whatever.
Elliot actually adheres to journalistic principles, and that's the whole point of being an insider, is that you're not going to burn your sources. So, although Elliot has an annoying habit lately of stating all three options. This could happen, or may not happen, or it's either a yes or a no, or nothing will happen. You're like, what? Come on, Elliot. Wait, I love Elliot, but
Elliot, our market's just brutal for like trying to, storms and teacups and taking like a line and twisting it into something else. And not checking their sources, not checking their facts. And, someone says something, that's hearsay, and they take it as gospel, right? So, I think that needs to change, and that's not something the Canucks can have. Like, that's not them. It might be a little bit harder to get things out of the Sedins. Like, they know how to play the media. Yeah. Right. Well, but it's definitely, it's interesting, especially I love that he called, I missed it, and I'm just going based on what you say, but I love him calling out the media for doing that,
Yeah, interesting. So, obviously the elephant in the room of Elias Pettersson came up for each of them. We'll see what happens with that. We'll see what happens with Adam Foote. There's some tough decisions to be made. It looks like it's an opportune time to bring up Manny at some point. I was thinking, it's like, would Foote ever go back just to being the defensive coach? I mean, that's a demotion, and I'm not sure anyone really wants a demotion ever, but a few interesting things to wrestle out. So, I referenced earlier that Daniel Sedin said that Evan Gold was an impressive candidate. Mm-hmm. Did you hear anything more about that? Or I do have some more information from the Steve Dangle podcast, what they went public with. So I'll talk about that if you don't have anything else.
I just, again, what I heard was not, it was just, it was pretty non-detailed. That more or less that Hugh just sort of was very close to getting it, and then something happened, and I don't want to say bridges were burnt, but there was just quick decisions made, and they didn't go forward with it. So
I kept hearing he overplayed his hand, and I thought, overplayed his hand? How can you play for overplay a hand? So I just went down sort of a personal rabbit hole as far as like just my theories and thoughts on it. It's like, well, he's probably, one thing, it could be money, but then a little bit more information of that he was going to bring Jamie Langenbrunner, who was an assistant GM for Boston, who is the assistant GM for Boston, one of them, and the capologist from Boston. I said, okay, if he's bringing two people over, that means kind of two people have to get booted. Mm-hmm. So I've heard for the last week and a half that for sure one assistant general manager is not coming back. I haven't heard who that is. So one's out, two's in. So that's one more body on the staff of, the existing Canucks roster of how many assistant GMs do they have? Like 20?
I don't know, 6,000.
Yeah. And so, okay, so that's money. Okay, so now what I heard from the Steve Dangle podcast, and you guys, I'll put a link if I can remember in the show notes. But so the host, no, it wasn't Steve Dangle, but I can't remember the host's name. He says this is what he heard. He said that the Canucks lowballed on salary to Evan Gold. Mm-hmm. So Steve Dangle said what $2 million? Like he started throwing numbers out. He says no, less. And he says $1 million, and the host said less. Huh. So he was offered less than $1 million, and he's like, "What, entry level money? Like 900, 700,000?" He didn't say the number, but he did say it was less than $1 million. Wow. And then he also said that for sure Jamie Langenbrunner was coming, and then the capologist. I can't remember the name. So that was two more salaries. So if you think about that logically, so if he comes in, there's no relationship with the Sedins, and so that's an iffy, right? That's an if, right? Mm-hmm. So, but also, there's no guarantee that Evan Gold would not clear out all the AGMs, all the assistant general managers. So what the host of the Steve Dangle podcast, I think, what's his name? I can't remember. Adam. I think it's Adam. He says, you're looking at a number that's maybe $10 million in buyouts. Mm-hmm. So, he also went down the theory that, the Aquilinis are real estate rich and they may not have 10 million liquid to be able to do all those buyouts. And so the theory they were reasoning on was like, hey, maybe they just decided to, hey, there's a relationship with the Sedins, and if they bring in Evan Gold, there's no guarantee the Sedins would have taken the gig either, right? Mm-hmm. And they know Ryan Johnson. That was the theory. So it came down to kind of a money thing for Evan Gold. And so the overplayed his hand, I don't think it was, but, I can't remember how much Rutherford's making, but coaches are making $4 or $5 million, right now. So, GM's got to make a couple million probably. Anyways, that's what I heard. I mean, I'll put it in the show notes. It's a recent one. I think it's called "What's Going On with the Canucks" on the Steve Dangle podcast. I found that fascinating. I found it super interesting because even Daniel saying that he was a very impressive prospect or candidate caught my ear, and he was almost the Toronto GM, almost the Canucks GM. Like they actually compared to the I think Mike Fuda on Sportsnet, one of the other commentators, the former GMs there, that he was the bridesmaid too many times and just kept getting passed over. Mm-hmm. But money and payouts is potentially one of the reasons. Don't know. I mean, I feel much better with. I mean, Gold, when we recorded last week, was kind of my pick. Yeah. But after seeing this press conference with the Twins and Johnson, I feel pretty good. I feel confident. I won't go as high as 8. I'll definitely go into the 7 for me. 7. Like, okay, I'm gonna give them the 5-year leash, but they've bought extra time because it's the Twins but Ryan Johnson impressed me with his press conference. So I like what I heard. So yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
So the other thing I wanted to talk to you, and I sent a whole. I was just shocked by this, and this was in the Rutherford presser, and I texted you and a few others today about this. I am literally in shock about, and the quote was, and actually I think the Twins addressed it as well, is that the dressing room has never been happier since the trade deadline.
Yeah,
and I paused for a second. I thought, wait a second. Well, Myers was moved. Garland was moved. Mm-hmm. David Kampf was moved. Mm-hmm. Well, who were they talking about? And it I don't think it was Myers, because Myers was like kind of the captain material, once Quinn was gone, like he was doing face-off and stuff like that. It's not Kampf. Like, by process of elimination, Garland was a problem in the room. Like, I'm shocked. I mean, he was yours and one of my favorite players, and yet he is. So as I was doing some due diligence today, I was asking around. My brother pointed out, like, yeah, Garland was getting fights and practice with people all the time, and so I don't know, man. Like, we chatted before we started hit record here, but what's your thoughts on that? What's your take on Garland being a problem?
I find it interesting that the term of the word problem. So, I mean, because the way I'm looking at it is Garland's like a passion guy, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not giving it all, even in practice, and he starts yelling at you and, like, holding you accountable, and that makes you feel bullied or bad or whatever, then I'm kind of like, well, is the culture that you're not being held accountable? Is it the way he was doing it, perhaps? Because there's a difference between, yelling at someone to work harder and like, dude, you gotta give it, and personal insults, right? So, that's that's a thing that a lot of people, especially in hockey, right? They will, because when you chirp, it's personal insults. You're chirping at the other team. That's how you get a lot of your chirps, right? So if that's what you're doing with your own players, then that's going to be a problem. But if you're just getting angry and holding them accountable for not putting in the effort, for having, a half energy practice and not giving it your all, because what you practice is what you play, right? If you practice like you are going at 80%, you're going to play like you're going at 80%. That's it. So if he's just getting mad and frustrated with that and yelling at them and trying to hold them accountable, then is he the problem, really?
Yeah.
Or is
he trying to address the problem? Yeah.
So is the problem like they're like the dressing room's happier? Okay, but are they working hard? Are they still trying to put in the effort? Because you can have a happy dressing room of people making millions of dollars and just sort of doing nothing. Like, hey, here I am. Look at me. My name's Pedersen, and my arms are, I got bigger arms than that kid. Like, if that's the mentality, if you want happy and you want to just play hockey, then this team is never going to win anything.
The word country club has been used in a few eras of the Canucks here. Yep. And I would suspect that it's a very appropriate at the moment. I don't know.
So I got no problems with someone holding players accountable. Like, that you need that, right? You need those players to keep pushing and hold players accountable. If they're doing it in a way that is attacking as a person, right? You're doing personal attacks, then that becomes a bit of a problem. And that might just be an opportunity. That's when your coaches and your GM should be stepping in going, hey, love your passion, but you need to find ways to word this different. Instead of saying like, hey, chicken legs, why are you so slow all the time or whatever? You're already showing what needs to be done. Now you got to find a positive way to push them. Like, come on, man, you're faster than last two steps. You're faster than last shift. Yeah. Let's see you just step it up one more time. I want you to beat me to the puck this time, right? Like doing things that gets them engaged and holds them accountable, but not to a point where you're personally attacking them. So that's where, and I don't know where that was at, if he did either or, but my main concern would be, is a happy dressing room, does that mean that they're going to be held accountable and doing what needs to be done? Or are they just happy?
Is that a recipe for success? Yeah. Is it a recipe for success on the ice? Is what I feel you're saying? Totally. And no, it doesn't have to be, because you want players pushing each other. I mean, what you were just talking about reminded me of Kessler and Willie Mitchell, and then Shane O'Brien and Willie Mitchell. Willie Mitchell, as the prickly personality, it seemed he was, and getting in some trouble after his career. Who knows, right? But the fact that Kessler fought him, O'Brien wanted to fight him, so there is a fine line, but it's for better or worse, the old boys rules of in chirps and insulting and trying to motivate that way. Yeah, who knows, right? Like, I'm surprised we never heard anything about it. Like, nothing sort of ever got out of the room until now. So I'm actually a little bit surprised that this is the first. This is a little detective work too, because I'm like, wait a second, happier dressing room, and then even Daniel was saying that I'm really excited what we saw since the trade deadline. This group's excited. They're rejuvenated. There's chemistry, and there's it's exciting. I'm like, what are we talking about? The same team here? I'm like, I'm not sure the results on the ice were necessarily the same, or maybe I was just so tainted by that point. I'm not sure, but anyways, that's actually positive if they're seeing some or have some optimism at this point post trade deadline, and we'll read into the rumors and speculation on that one. My brother made an interesting point. He said, do you think that the bonus freaking out in Columbus end of year presser might have to do with the same personality involved?
Yeah, maybe.
Like, Bonus lost his mind.
Yep.
Like, lost his mind. And, Garland came in on that. Remember, we looked it up at the time that he set some sort of Columbus record about 4 goals in 2 games or whatever. And I thought, oh man, that figures. Canucks luck, trade Garland. He sets the world on fire over there, but the whole team just tapped out with 3 games left or whatever Bonus was talking about. Mm-hmm. Like he lost his mind. But that's also a culture thing, because Bonus said if he's coming back to Columbus, he's fixing the culture there, which is a very interesting statement.
Yeah.
It could be pure coincidence that Garland goes from here to there, and all of a sudden there's a problem there too. So who knows? I mean, it's all speculation at this point, but I just find it wow, like unearthing something at the beach. Like, look, I found $100 or something. Anyways,
yeah, that was good work. Good work on you. Good detective work.
I found something else. We got it's 40 minutes here. Let's get into it. I sent it to you as well, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So this harkens back to Quinn Hughes' comments about playing the Canucks for the first time. And I was upset with his very lackadaisical, very almost like ungrateful comments about playing his former teammates. Oh, I hardly know those guys over there.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it in the episode that we discussed it, and yep. I did make the comment because my brother Derek is someone I talk to a lot besides you and my other Canucks chat about these sorts of deeper Canuck things, and his takeaway was that that's just not a very smart answer. Like it's not an intelligent answer. Yep. And I thought, that's an interesting take, and I didn't, it was his opinion, and I thought, okay, that's cool. But I sent you that article from the Athletic,
yep.
How Quinn was billeted at Keith Tkachuk's house. Him and Brady are the same age, same mm-hmm. draft. Matthew's a couple years older, so he wasn't there. So it was talking about life in the Tkachuk house. And I sent you the link, and I also sent you the little screen cap. It was talking about Keith Tkachuk had to make the lunches for Quinn and for Brady. And, they're not hurting for money. But at some point, Keith would make them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches if they weren't playing very well in their hockey life. So as sort of a punishment versus getting Chipotle's or getting other good things in their lunch.
Yeah.
And apparently in that one of the spells where Quinn and Brady weren't doing very well hockey-wise, Keith Tkachuk rewarded them with peanut butter sandwiches for lunch. And Quinn threw the entire lunch or threw the sandwich on their lawn. And Keith was looking at it as like, what? And Brady actually had to, there was a period where like Quinn was in trouble with Keith because of this spell of, we'll call it misbehaving or not playing well in hockey, et cetera,
yep.
to the point where Brady had to call and apologize for Quinn to Keith to get him out of the doghouse. But Keith's comments, and that's the one I sent it to you in the screenshot, says Quinn wasn't the most intelligent kid at that age.
Mm-hmm.
And that just stuck out like a sore thumb based on my brother's, his takeaway from those comments. I thought I didn't necessarily put that together from that. I was just, as I mentioned to you, I was pissed that at least some sort of like, hey, you're the captain of Canucks, a la Horvat is what I said. Some sort of Vancouver acknowledgement, even though and that was to like all media, but then the Horvat burned that bridge when he said in game, like, it's better than Vancouver here after they were, I think they got into the playoffs that one year. Anyways, took a shot at the Canucks, whatever. But anyways, I don't know. Like, what's your takeaway? Did you end up reading that article? It's in the Athletic from the is it New York Times?
New York Times.
What do you think? Yeah,
and it's New York Times. It doesn't surprise me.
Okay.
I mean, he's a very gifted player, but like he was, I don't know, just like his personality always left me not like I was never impressed with him, to be honest.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
And and even less so in his last like 10 games with the Canucks. But even when he was doing awesome and, they're going to playoffs and everything, and there was still, it's just his personality never sat well with me. And that could be maybe he's cut from the, the article talks about how he wasn't too intelligent with, figuring things out. Him and Garland were best friends.
Right.
Makes you wonder if the two of them were sort of, I don't want to say the bullies of the room, but like the dumb,
the mean boys, the mean guys,
the guys that were trying to like they're dumb, like they don't have the respect of the room because people are sitting there going, you guys are idiots, but yet they're acting like they should. And they're really riding on everyone. Well, again, when you do that, right? If people don't have your respect as a leader, and you're the captain,
yeah, totally.
That's going to cause some serious issues, and obviously it did because look where we're at, right? So, yeah, and I don't think he should be wearing a letter ever. Right. And I never thought he should be captain either.
Yeah,
or assistant captain. I didn't think he had that personality, that type of, character to be doing that. He's an amazing defenseman. Put him in his lane, make him do his stuff. That's it. Right. And that's what I saw. That's what I thought. Yeah.
It makes you wonder how they even got to the consensus to make him captain then.
I sometimes think that the captain's picked based on like who's the most skillful.
Yeah.
To be honest. Not always. But I think that's what happened there. Because it wasn't, he didn't really show any leadership qualities.
Yeah.
He was horrible in front of the media. He barely ever would come out and actually talk.
Right.
He didn't answer questions. He was not, I don't know what he was like in the room, but in hindsight, you could almost say like he probably wasn't a leader in the room either.
Well, yeah. I mean, with that, he's a very, like, my initial take, especially after that, was it Prime Video did their series of him, like he's watching 3 games at a time, eating healthy, just studying hockey. I thought, oh, he's just some sort of like super hockey nerd and just quiet and kind of bookish. And, he had, when he got made captain, he talked about all the books he was reading. It's like, oh, just like a very studious library kid, who happens to be like unreal at hockey. But just looking at the 23-24 roster, I mean, Miller's there, obviously. I think Miller would have been the only other choice, and I think everyone was scratching their head. Why was Miller over Quinn Hughes at that point? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
So so it was a good article. If you got a chance, everyone out there, go and check out Keith Kachuk's School of Hard Knocks in New York Times. It was a fun little article.
Yeah, interesting little snippet into their life. I didn't know he built it with them. Yeah.
Yep.
I also came across something on Reddit that John Weisbrod and the Hughes family are friends. There was like some Reddit thread about how Quinn Hughes was, had bad feelings about. I was like, what? It's true. I guess they are family friends or whatever, but I think it was before Quinn's time, I believe. Yeah, I mean, interesting fodder for conversations in and around. I think the consensus is, as I asked friends and people about their opinion on my Canucks chat, and I think this the cautious optimism, as my buddy Steve says. I think people are more focused on things they can actually focus on, like Manny versus Adam Foote and things like that. But I think that the leash is going to be long. I think the PR move is good, and I think Francesco actually acknowledging the rebuild was maybe the second or third most pertinent thing that I saw in the last 2 weeks. So, I think it's we're still 5 years away. So,
we still got some time away. I was just taking a look at the 2023 roster. Guess how many players are still rostered with the Canucks?
Oh, how many? Oh, Bluger. I'm looking at it too.
Oh, okay.
So Bluger, Höglander, Hronek. Not many, right? So
5.
Yeah.
And that's the transition of a team. Like I was telling you before, even the players that we have now most likely are not going to be on the team that makes it to the playoffs.
Right.
The next round. The next time the Canucks are playoffs. You might see 2 or 3 players on this current roster that are going to be on that team.
Right.
A lot of these guys are going to be chip pieces that they're using to move and build with. And, you might see some of the roster guys coming in, the draft guys coming in. They might get to be on that team. But overall, I think you're going to see like a lot of these guys that people are excited about, and I know you're excited about a few of the players. I don't know if they all are going to be on the next Canucks team that makes it to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's way outside the window. I mean, we're minimum 4 years away, which is interesting because if you look at the San Jose model, and that was another thing that Rutherford talked about, and we talked about at length. San Jose, Anaheim, Chicago, and Montreal are all teams that we talked about as opposed, like what model do we want to follow, and which veterans do we want to keep to help the young kids along. So, anyway, that was affirming for sure. But yeah, where it's well outside the window, and so everyone must go is the giant banner on the front of Rogers Arena. It's the giant sale banner. But I think you still need to shepherd, and I think you can do with free agents as well. And I think we're going to have to be very careful because the word culture was thrown about so much by the Twins and by Rutherford and by Ryan Johnson. Yeah. Obviously, there's a massive problem, and I think that part of the problem is, and we'll see. Like if PD doesn't show up this year, like we'll know it wasn't really fixable. And I wondered in the last week and a half, like, man, if they had just gotten rid of Petey instead of Miller, because even Shane O'Brien was on something recently. He was on the Kachuk podcast, Shane O'Brien, and he says I would never have traded Miller. And they both Kachucks went on at length about how amazing Miller was. Now, I think he's probably good in short bursts like that, short tournaments. They're talking about the Olympics and Four Nations, et cetera, et cetera. But PD really needs to. I believe that the Twins and Ryan Johnson are prepared to make the hard decision on Pettersson if need be. That's my take. I don't think they're going to let it go very long. Did you? And I sent you the Chris Higgins interview off of Sportsnet 650, right?
Yep.
Where he specifically called out, like, if they don't come in shape, then those are the players we need to get rid of. Yeah. And that's super interesting coming from a deep insider. Obviously, he's still employed by the Canucks, and that's a very interesting take. That's another link I should put in the show notes here. But
yep. No, I he's gone through a lot of personal stuff over the past year and a bit.
Yep.
but I think like right now is his time to focus. Like he's got, 3 months to just build bulk, strengthen, right? And make it so that look what the Sedins did in the lockout year, right? They went from being the sisters, they went from being knocked off every single puck.
Yeah.
Right? People were just laughing at them basically. Right? And then the lockout happened and they went back to Sweden and they trained and worked and built and they like trained hard.
Yeah.
And then they came back. And those guys were the most difficult to knock off the puck.
Right.
Like everyone in the NHL in that time, in that era that played against them. If you were to say, hey, who's the hardest person to check on the boards? Henrik and Daniel.
Yeah,
like,
which is crazy,
those guys
right?
Were just so strong and so able to control the puck and get it and make a play with it. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what Pettersson needs. But
Pettersson has been that. He
I know.
reverse hit people. He's wiry strong. Like something obviously. So yeah, the year for him personally sounds horrible. Yeah. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But he was fine before that 3 years ago, prior to the All-Star game. And whatever that leg injury was, whatever it was, that's the PD that got the $11 million. And the question is, where did that PD go? But you're right, the lockout, that's when the Twins became point per game players. They came back, and Henrik specifically had 42 points the year before the lockout. And the year after the lockout, he had 75 points in 82 games. Yep. And then 81, and then 76, then 82, then 112, then 94. I mean, so you're right. But I do remember the one game, I think Rob Blake was with Colorado, and he went into the corner with Daniel Sedin, and he went to smoke, and Rob Blake's 6'4", 230 pounds, and he hit Daniel, and they both equally went back as an equal and opposite force on the body check. And I thought, whoa, something's changed. They finally arrived because we had the Peter Nedved versions of the Twins up until that point where everyone bounced Peter Nedved around like a Gumby doll. Yep. And the Twins were the same until that point. And it was amazing to see. And that's the legends that the Twins became after that. But
exactly.
That's the confusing part about Petey is that he was that in year 3 and massive regression. Yep. Now, your ankle theory is still interesting. I'm curious about that, but who knows? I
don't know. It's I still see it when I'm, if I'm looking back watching old games and stuff, and I still see like he seems to be skating on his ankles almost. Like he doesn't seem to have strong.
They seem to be weak, and so after you pointed that out. I was watching specifically. We went to the Carolina game. We watched them. After that, there was a. I think Zeev passed it to him left side D to right wing, and he caught the pass, and then he took a stride in a bit, and then he stumbled, and there was no contact. There was nothing. It wasn't even like you could say bad ice. He just his ankle wobbled and gave out, and he almost fell down. Like he almost went to a knee, and I thought, oh my gosh. So there is something. I think that you should use your powers of the Church of Pettersson and ask Sat or somebody to do some digging. Like honestly, like if everyone said, "Oh my God, he's got bad ankles," and there's, I mean, what do you do? The bad ankles ended Peter Forsberg's career, and so I'm not sure what can be done now. Maybe it's a year off in surgery. Take the year, like something like that.
So I mean. Whole bunch of things. First off, they're not gonna voice anything, right? Because if you're keeping him and you voice it, the fan base is just going to tear you apart,
right? And you can't trade him.
And if you want to move him,
you can't trade him,
and you voice it, you're never going to move him, and then the fan base is going to tear you apart. So if there is an issue there, we're not going to hear it or hear about it until
he retires.
Until he's either retired or gone.
Yeah.
And then the little stories will come out about, he had this or that and whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever it is, I pray, I hope that he can identify it and that he has the will to work through and improve himself. And that's where I think he's got the skill. We all know that.
Oh, like
he's got the skill. But the will is what's been seemingly lacking.
Yeah.
And not just lacking in like we know he wants to win. Of course he wants to win. Everyone wants to win.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between wanting to win and putting in the effort to win. Right? Yeah. I always want to win at everything I do. But there's a few things I don't really want to put any effort into doing. I just want to win it.
That's right.
And you can't have that mindset. You can't be a professional hockey player and think, I'm just going to do what I do and I want to win.
Yeah.
You got to actually take a look at yourself. Where do I need to improve? Work on those things. And you got to want to be better. You got to want to improve to win, not just want to win. So I really hope that we see that from him. I've been saying that for 3 years. So I'll say it again. I really hope he comes back from the off season and he's done the hard work and then he's ready to bring something more.
Yeah.
And if not, I mean, we already talked about it. If I'm GM, I'm already looking Pedersen, Besser, DeBrusk. I'm looking to make those moves if I can.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
It's
we've covered those moves already. Hey, here's an interesting fact. So when I was mentioning Peter Forsberg, I was like, I wonder if he ever made as much money as like a Petey at $11 million. So I was looking through his salary career. So I don't know if this site is legit, but Hockey Zone Plus has salaries listed, including what the conversion is. So the third last year of Peter Forsberg, he did make $11 million. So he got to up to 10 million, 10.5, 9.5, then 11. Mm-hmm. Do you know what the conversion is on $11 million? This is according to the website. In 03, 04, $11 million. Do you know what today's evaluation of $11 million is?
20?
$19 million. Wow. He was making the equivalent of $19 million in 03, 04. No wonder they locked them all out.
Yeah. Wow.
That's crazy. This is the NHL we're talking about, not the NBA or MLB. Mm-hmm. Man alive. But good for them. I mean, they've turned it around because economically, I think that the league is healthy. The TV deals are there, and they've turned the corner. But and that's his $11 million without his Croc money. That's Peter Forsberg. So. Did you ever hear that story?
No.
He made more money investing in Crocs than he ever did as a player. He made $77 million total as an NHLer, and he has made probably 3 times that as a primary investor in Crocs.
Wow.
I cannot, somebody, I don't think it was a player, but it's somebody that was inside the Colorado circles or inside NHL circles. I don't think it was a player. Whoever started Crocs asked for investment money, and Peter DeFord was, sure. Invested a sum that made him more than his entire NHL career.
Let's see.
Crocs, Peter Forsberg. Let's see. Come on.
Says here that he estimates his value from Crocs to be over $90 million.
Yeah, and he made 77. Well, it says 84 on the AI. Well, less than 84 million. Anyways, isn't that crazy?
Wow.
The podcast I heard it on was that the other player, I think whose primary story it was, said no to investing in Crocs, like a shoe made of silicone, like, or whatever it's made of, and like, that's stupid. That's never gonna fly. Peter Ford was like, sure, I'll give you some money.
Here you go.
Yeah. Hey, well, just to sort of wrap this up, it's been an hour or so. I tell you one thing, as a Canucks fan, I am. If I never hear the words again, culture and preparation with regards to this team and certain people and in and around, I will be a happy, happy man. I am sick of the word culture and I'm sick of the word preparation, because this is 3 years of the word of preparation. If this comes in prepared. oh my gosh, you're professional athletes, get it together, figure it out. I don't need to hear that anymore. And I will be thrilled when that story of the word preparation is done. I will be thrilled when the culture is fixed inside of the Canucks dressing room. I think we're on our way, but I am sick of those two words. I'm done with them.
Okay.
So, well, that's all we got. That's all I got this week.
We should talk draft next episode.
Yes. I mean, we can talk on it briefly now if you want. I mean, that's kind of relevant. So
I think there's lots to go through there. There's lots to talk about. I could go another hour with just.
Okay, so let's do that. Do you want to share the tidbit, or do you want to share for next week?
I don't know. So I mean, there's lots of different ideas.
Let's give it 5 minutes here. Let's do 5 minutes on it.
Sure.
Because I found it very interesting because we had talked about these possible scenarios, and let's just run through it real quick.
So, well, first off, I mean, you and I know. I don't know if everyone knows, but my first pick, at third or lower is Manny Malhotra. No, he's blind in one eye, not going to work. But his kid Caleb. Watching him, I don't know if anyone's watched him, and just instead of looking at his stats, go and actually watch some of the games that he plays, and you might change your mind. He's got the right mindset. He plays the good game. So anyway, so what am I looking at? Let's trade it down, right? He is anywhere between 5th and 15th, depending on who you're looking at and who's talking. So you might be able to do something with, and I was just taking a look at this, you might be able to do something with St. Louis and get 11th. And then if you actually can convince him to give you 15th as well. Right, you trade it down, you go, okay, they get third pick, you get their 11th, their 15th, and you know what? Let's see if they'll throw in their 31st, right? Give them a third for the first round, and then see if you can pick up their 3 picks for the first round.
3 picks. Wow. Yeah.
So I might, that would be one of the scenarios that I'd take a look at doing, seeing if I can actually get in there and go, I'll give you 3rd round pick. You give me your 3 for the first round. Cause they're going to get someone that makes a difference most likely. And at 11th, we still might be able to get Malhotra.
Yeah. And that's interesting. Like, I find that fascinating. St. Louis with 2 picks there. That would give us, they're 2, 3. That would give us 3 picks in the first round.
Yep.
Now, this year over next year?
Actually, it'd give us 4 because we have Minnesota. We only have the 24th too, right?
Yeah, we have the 24th, so we only have two picks in the first round right now. Yeah, you get St. Louis's 2, so you would have
traded. We'd get St. Louis's 3 if they did.
Oh, they have trade. 3. I thought they had 2. Okay, where's
they got 3. They got 31st, 15th, and 11th.
Oh, that's a very, very interesting scenario. You'd have to pull some Brian Burke wizardry and be convinced that
who you want is going to be on the board still.
Yeah, exactly. So Chicago, Rangers, Calgary, Seattle, Winnipeg, Florida, Nashville don't want Caleb. So
it would take some effort and work. But I mean, there's other options there too, right? Like you can also talk about, do you want to really trade in your own division? I don't know. But Calgary and Seattle, they got some.
Not really. So the Rangers have 2 first-round picks as well.
Rangers got 2 first round. Theirs is a bit, I mean, you're moving 3rd to 5th. Are they going to give you your 27th for that as well?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so you got, I think the top 4 or 5, right? So McKenna, Stenberg, Reed, and then another defenseman. So the top 4, I think, are pretty desirable. So then it becomes the Wild West around pick 5, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know. That's very interesting.
Yep.
But
we can talk about that next time.
I think, for sure. And the fact that Caleb dropped so much too, and depends on which scouting source,
Well, it's interesting because if you look at some of the scouting, that there's guys that don't have them on the board for first 15 picks.
Yeah.
And then there's others that have them going 5th.
Yeah. So I would do a deal with Chicago. I will not do a deal with the Rangers. I don't want to deal with Calgary. I don't want to deal with Seattle. So you're right, as we talked before, Winnipeg's about where you start at pick 8.
Yeah.
And then Florida.
Florida doesn't have much, though, to give.
Well, you're going to swap picks, and maybe it's a player. Maybe it's a player or a prospect, right? So
maybe. Is there anyone on Florida that... Anyway, we can, like I said, we could go on for a good hour just taking a look at this stuff, right?
That'll be the subject for next week's episode if there's no other breaking news in the meantime. So
there we go. Sounds good to me. I love talking prospects.
I learned my lesson a long time ago. The Brent Tullys, Josh Holdens, Peter Schaefer burned me of all that a long time ago. So I'm happy to talk, but until they actually break through, I'm like, show me the money. That's why I don't get excited about the World Juniors anymore. Like, this is a Canuck process. I think Coots is different, but I think going back over the last 25 years, I think I've just been so just utterly disappointed that. So, well,
I mean, it's such a step, right? Like, like every step is so junior B to junior A. It's a small step, right? Yeah. Like most players with a little bit of effort can actually transition, right? Junior A to going up. Making it to the AHL.
Yep.
That's pretty good. But you gotta look, like 90% of their players can't actually break that threshold.
Yep.
And it's not like junior B to junior A where you have a small window and all you have to do is, work on a couple of things and you can make that jump. Like
exponential, right?
NHL is massive.
Yeah, it's a power of magnitude larger every step, right? So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, we'll talk about our drafts, wants, and scenarios in the next one. So
that sounds good to me.
We'll wrap it up in this episode of Canucks Only. Thank you, Shylo, for another insightful evening, and live on YouTube, live on Twitter. Next time we'll go live on Facebook at the same time, because when I hit the buttons, it goes live everywhere. So
look at that technology.
I know.
I'm always live.
Until you're not.
Till I'm not.
Right.
All right, bud.
All right, Shylo, have a good night, and we'll talk to you in the next one.
You bet.
All right.
Thank you for watching Canucks Only.
Canucks Only. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe.